Hi everyone, it's Leland Bunting, Saratoga County 4-H. Appreciate you taking a few moments to sit down and go through the re-enrollment process for 2020 with 4-H. In the next few minutes, we're going to go through some of these forms as they're going to look on your end and talk about how to complete them and ways of sharing them. So in the next segment, I'll be sharing my screen with you and going through these forms. So the first form that you'll see is either a youth enrollment form or an adult enrollment form. These look very similar. They show very similar information. This is generally what we ask you to read over and correct. So if you have the ability to make corrections directly onto the document, please feel free to do so, although if you do that, please highlight them so that they are easily noticeable by myself or Kim Wilbur as we make corrections. I will say some of the most common places that we see mistakes being made, and those are on my part. Whenever I get the enrollment forms in, sometimes I will mistake an L for a 1, or little things like that. So we want to make sure that the email address is correct. So please check your email address. Please check your phone numbers. If you've moved, please check your mailing address. Those types of things. Obviously, a lot of these demographic information probably hasn't changed unless you've changed schools or changed addresses. Another thing that can change from time to time is you may add or subtract a club from your participation. So here where it says clubs, this is again just strictly for example purposes. If you have added a club or you're wanting to leave a club, please indicate so on this. If you are wanting to add a club but you have not been in contact with that leader yet, please let me know so that I can get you in contact with that leader before I put you into that club, because I know a lot of our clubs are pretty limited on their space for new members as we're still facing our reopening challenges. The other things that you may want to add or subtract are project areas. So please review the project areas that you're enrolled in, and if you want to add those things or subtract them, you can. Now, if you do not have the ability to correct these things directly onto the document, feel free to print this document and write them in with a pen or a pencil. Again, if you can highlight those, that would be very helpful. Or you can email me the document back and let me know what the changes that need to be made are. There is a place for a signature down here. If you're going to be printing the document and sending it back into us, feel free to sign it. This is one of those documents that is not necessarily a legal type of document, so I'm not going to hunt you down if that space there is not signed. Okay, so the next piece of the re-enrollment forms will be the assumption of risk. The COVID-19 assumption of risk form is something that we are asking for all youth, volunteers, and adults who attend meetings to fill out. Now, this is not an annual document, so if you have already filled out the assumption of risk for coronavirus COVID-19, you do not need to complete it again. If you do it again, it's not the end of the world. It's really no issue at all. But if you have completed this within the past few weeks, please don't feel like you have to do this again. It is a fillable document, so you'll put the name of the participant, volunteer, or contributor there. For signatures, you can input your name or the name of the participants in here along with the date. As long as we receive these forms from an email associated with that participant, volunteer, parent, the signatures do not have to be live signatures. They can be typed in. The next piece of this puzzle is our acknowledgement of risk forms. These forms are annual forms. These have to be collected every year. These forms basically outline that you understand that there is a certain inherent amount of risk involved in these types of 4-H programming. We ask that you enter Saratoga County in this box here. If you don't, I'm going to know that it's Saratoga County, so I'm not going to hunt you down and make you fill that out. But we do ask that you check all of the boxes you're going to be participating in, or to make it even a little bit easier, check the all 4-H activities and events for the program year. Even if you don't plan on participating in a program with dogs or in clover bud activities, it makes it simple just to click there, just in case you decide you want to participate in those. We don't have to go back and correct them. So again, those aren't saying you're going to participate in those programs, but if you choose to later on in the year, we don't have to go back and correct this form. There is a place here for the information to be collected, or for signatures and such to be collected. This acknowledgement of risk form has the member equine form. So if you are a equine person, if you work with horses or plan on participating in horse programming, we will need to have the equine acknowledgement of risk form as well. Now, I should say that acknowledgement of risk, both of those acknowledgement of risk forms are only for youth. Adult volunteers do not need to complete those. Parents do not need to complete those for themselves. They only need to be completed for 4-H youth. Another form for 4-H youth is the photo video consent release form. If you are okay with us using photo or video of you and or your child in our social media posts, our press releases, those types of things, we ask that you do complete this form. If you do not have to complete this form, but please, I would ask that you let me know that you do not want yours or your child's images to be used in any of our social media, press releases, those types of things. I keep a running list of the members and volunteers who don't want us to use those things. So a lot of times it's easier for me to just update that list with those who don't, rather than going through all the forms to see whose information we do not have. Now, I will assure you that before we do post things on social media or do press releases, we check to make sure we have these forms for people. But a lot of times it's pretty easy if I can just go onto my spreadsheet and see if a youth is on that spreadsheet before we send those things out. The last thing that will be required for youth, and this also goes for adults as well, is the New York State 4-H Code of Conduct. This is an annual document that has to be filled out. It just outlines the guidelines and requirements, the standards of behavior that we accept or expect of our youth and our volunteers. We ask that if you are completing this for youth and if you're an adult, that you read through this yourself and with the youth who are going to be signing this so that they understand those expectations. There is a place to sign and date for both the youth and the parent down here. Now, one piece I do need to bring up is that adults do have a separate code of conduct. So adult volunteers have another piece of information that we need to collect. And this is our volunteer code of conduct. So this outlines the expectations and requirements that we have for our adult volunteers. Again, it's pretty common sense stuff. But since you are technically a representative of Cornell Cooperative Extension, we like to outline some of those things that we expect of our volunteers who are representing us. So the last two pieces of information that might be included, these two pieces might be included, are our motor vehicle request form and our background screening request form. Now, these forms are only needed to be collected every 3 years, so not every family will have these included with your packet. However, we do have some select families who will be receiving these because their 3 years has expired and we need to run these again. For the motor vehicle checks, if you plan on driving youth other than your own, obviously at this time in the fall of 2020, we don't want youth riding with anyone other than immediate family members. But if restrictions are lifted and you plan on driving youth other than your own, including planning for the next 2 to 3 years, or if you foresee yourself needing to drive cooperative extension vehicles, we do need to collect the information from the motor vehicle request form. And the background screening request, all of our adult volunteers do have a background check run on them. And again, we collect these every 3 years. There are 2 pages to this. First page has your basic information. The last page is your social security number. Now, obviously, we do protect your social security numbers and use them for nothing more than what is required by the background check. They are kept under lock and key until it is time for them to be destroyed. If you do not feel comfortable with submitting your social security number on paper form, you can call our office and talk to Ellie, and she can take that number via the phone as well. Ellie Hackett does our background checks for us and keeps that spreadsheet up to date. And again, we promise not to share this information with anybody else. It's just that the system that we use for background checks do require Social Security numbers to work. All right. So as far as getting this information back to us, you can feel free to submit it back electronically. That can be a scan and an email of documents. It can be a photo, a clear photo taken with your phone of documents and emailed. Or you can mail these forms back to our office at 50 West High Street, Ballston Spa, New York. Now, please keep in mind that enrollment fees have not changed from previous years. They are $5 for youth and $5 for adults. These fees cover our bare minimum cost for insurance policies for youth, and they actually go to help for the adult side of things. They help pay for background tests or background checks, which cost us upwards of $30 every 3 years. So $5 doesn't quite cover that cost, but we're fortunate the 4-H Leaders Association comes in and picks up the rest of that cost for our volunteers. So again, $5 will need to be sent to our office or dropped off for each member and volunteer. Again, they can be sent to our office at 50 West High Street, Ballston Spa, New York, 12020, or can be dropped off to our offices as well. If you can give us a heads up when you are coming, we can collect those. They can be made payable via check to Cooperative Extension of Saratoga County, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Saratoga County, or simply CCE of Saratoga County. That should be everything you need to know. However, please know that I am here to help you with any of your re-enrollment questions, whether it has to do with the forms or the processes, or even finding opportunities for youth or yourself as a volunteer moving forward. We want to make sure that all of our youth have a positive experience and are getting out of 4-H everything that they hope they would. So please do not hesitate to email me, to call me. Our number is 518-885-8995. I will do my very best to make sure that we get your child the opportunities that they want. Thank you, everyone, and happy new 4-H year.